So in terms of traditional academia and the way that we value publications, and a lot of the articles that you've written have been in wide readership, editorially reviewed papers, what are your thoughts about, especially for graduate students that are coming into academia here soon, and also non-tenured professors that are trying to earn tenure? What are your thoughts about publishing?
Candid advice, if you're seeking a career in academia, you have to make a decision about whether you're happy at the institution you are. Let's say you're at a college where there's a great deal of emphasis on preparing teachers, administrators, and what you realize is that you're happy there. And for that institution, it may well be that influential pieces, potentially influential pieces in more widely read educational journals may be the way to go. If, on the other hand, you are at a place where the orientation is clearly publication in independently refereed journals, scholarly journals of the highest prestige, and you're happy there, then you have to aim for those kind of publications. I had the liberty of writing what I wanted to after I got tenure from writing in the scholarly journals. So my early efforts were all in scholarly refereed journals. I couldn't resist an occasional silly piece just for the hell of it. But the truth is, the early stuff was far more academically oriented. And then later on, you can reach a position. Now, there's a certain point at which I get tired of looking at data. I said, I don't want to do a t-test. No, I don't. And so it's more fun to write in a more casual manner to try to influence people. I guess, Audrey, everyone decides, you decide, your colleagues decide what is that motivates them. And for me, it's always been a potential impact. Sure. If I do something that I think has a greater likelihood of reaching one more teacher, one more school administrator, that's the thing I'll be writing.
Good. Dylan William, your longtime friend, notes that your most significant achievement in this way is you combine passion for the improvement of education with respect for the work of teachers and what they do on the daily basis. Joe Ryan adds that what he most admires about you is that you constantly, effectively, and importantly bring the discussion of measurement and assessment back to the central issues of effective instruction and student learning. You do very well at grounding your scholarship in the real issues of teachers in practice. Margaret Heritage adds that your most significant professional accomplishment is that you ground assessment in the context of teaching. There's a theme here. You care about teachers and children and want what's best for them and make complex issues digestible for them. Paul Sandifer agrees, noting that your continued work to make assessment results meaningful and useful has impacted literally thousands, while your years as a member of the faculty at UCLA Graduate School in Education helped train others, and your many contributions to the professional literature have no doubt had positive influences on your readers. The end game in all of this is what happens with the students. Since 1968, you have continued to serve as the director of IOX Assessment Associates, working with states and others on their testing and assessment systems. Tell us about this work.
The points you made about focusing on instruction are accurate. I think that once I found myself a high school teacher and realized, not overnight, but in the first couple of years, that I had to make decisions about how to teach those children, I think the focus on instructional decisions became overwhelming in my life. And the reason I gravitated toward measurement is because measurement results began to influence instructional decisions. So it has been a preoccupation in my career. I get offended when I'm sitting in technical advisory committees where groups of us advise state measurement people on how to play the measurement game, and no one even thinks about instruction or kids or learning or students, and it's just vexing to me. And so I guess when you really think about how you can change that, you end up both writing articles about criterion reference approaches to instruction and assessment, and then you find yourself trying to advise states so they will do better assessment at the state level. And for a while I headed a group that built statewide high-stakes tests for about 13 states. My effort to actually do it. And it's interesting for graduate students, because as long as you are an academic advocate, you're pretty much free to say what you want. But the minute you become a doer and you start producing the tests, as I did, I had to say goodbye to objectivity, because everyone thinks you're advocating criterion reference measurement approaches because you're selling criterion reference tests. So when you move into that arena, you move into it with some peril.
You are also the founder and leader of the annual triennials, which we discussed. You have received multiple awards for your scholarship, including Distinguished Alumni Awards, Outstanding Publication Awards, and the AERA American Publishers Award for Outstanding Educational Research in the field of instructional materials. You are also the founding editor of the AERA journal, Educational Evaluation and Policy Analysis. Most recently, you received Outstanding or Lifetime Achievement Awards from the National Council on Educational Measurement, the National Council for Research on Evaluation Standards and Testing, the Association of Educational Publishers, and the Jason Millman Award for the Consortium for Research on Educational Accountability and Teacher Evaluation. This is just to name a few of your awards and your honors. You've received also several distinguished teaching awards, including many at UCLA, the Harvey L. Ebby Award for the Art of Teaching, and an honor in 2000 as you're recognized by UCLA Today as one of UCLA's top 20 professors of the 20th century.
This particular award, I must say, always meant a lot to me, because that was for the full 20th century, the entire 100-year, not this short one that we're dealing with now. That was that 100-year baby, and to be a top 20 professor there, that counts.
That's quite the feather in your cap.
Oh, yeah.
You have also received multiple awards for your service, so you're the full, well-rounded professor. Most recently, in 2009, you're appointed to the National Assessment and Governing Board by Secretary of Education Arne Duncan. In addition, you've served in multiple leadership roles for AERA, including its president. Is it true you have attended every AERA since 1958, your first one? This
last week I attended my 55th straight AERA meeting, and let me tell you a story about the very first one. I was a graduate student, and the meeting was in St. Louis, and there were only about 500 people there. So now there are 15,000. But I was presenting a paper, and I was presenting a paper in a concurrent session. So there were two sessions, only two sessions, concurrent sessions, and I was presenting in this one. Well, it turns out that the other concurrent session speakers had encountered car trouble or some kind of trouble, and they couldn't show up. So instead of being in a concurrent session that split the audience, my concurrent session had everyone in it, like a general session. And I'm looking out in the front row, and here are all these incredible professors that I've been reading about. Lee J. Kronbach in the second row. I was so terrified. My knees were absolutely shaking. So you'd think that that experience would have kept me off. No, AERA has been a wonderful place for interacting with colleagues and for learning new stuff. And yeah, 55 straight. And
for having fun, too, with your triennial.
Yep.
From 1969 to 70, you served as the president of the California Educational Research Association as well. And you also received the Lifetime Achievement Award there. But how did you get to be a commissioner?
The truth is, when we saw the approach of the election of Senator Gore or Governor Bush, everyone was talking more and more about the need for accountability and the need for more testing. And that was at a time when high-stakes tests were already doing serious evil, I thought, to our schools. So I was able to form, with the support of a number of national organizations, a group, and included David Berliner and Jim Pellegrino and Eva Baker and some very prominent folks. And our group deliberated on as how you could create a test that would simultaneously be useful for accountability and yet could support instruction. And we did not know what to call ourselves, whether we should call ourselves a group or whatever. And it was David Berliner who said he had never been a commissioner. and would like very much for us to call ourselves a commission so that he could indeed be a commissioner. And so we assented largely to placate David's need for importance.
He adds that the cheapskate never gave him his commissioner's badge.
He got what he deserved.
Nothing. You were also the Prince of the Rose Parade here in Portland as a child?
This is not widely known, but should be listed prominently in my vita. When I was at Sunnyside Grade School, one of the prominent features of June in Portland, Oregon is the Rose Festival. And I was designated as the Rose Festival Prince of Sunnyside Grade School. It's a prominent notion, and I think I should get more credit for it.
Some people that responded to this said it's your most significant accomplishment to date.
These are stupid people.
They're your friends. What's that
They
say about
are, nonetheless. What the?
Rick Stiggins also notes that you're quite the tennis player. You've been playing tennis for quite a bit. Is that right?
Rick Stiggins thinks I am a good tennis player because Rick Stiggins is so bad. This is what we call regression effect. If you're that deficit, everyone looks better, and Rick has almost no talent.
He says that you kick his butt every time.
Quite so, but it's a very easy butt to kick.
He also recalls the time while on a conference program together, it fell to him to introduce you. Do you remember what happened?
No, I do not. I tend to try to forget anything associated with Rick.
You had an artificial hip?
Oh, I did have a hip replacement, and he referred to me as being artificially hip, which I thought was kind of maligning, but it was okay.
So he kicked your butt on the stage then,
Rick's a good friend.
Margaret Heritage remembers recently presenting a workshop with you at a European conference on assessment. The Europeans treated you like a rock star and lapped up everything you had to say. She also said on the dance floor, you showed everyone what a mean dancer you are. But what was it with the tall, blonde Swedish woman?
I think the fact that I was given near reverential treatment by Margaret's European colleagues offended her. And I can understand that because, you know, when the guy is getting, you know, plaudits and the girl is viewed as just there. So there was a dance session, and I was dancing with Margaret until the tall, blonde Swedish person arrived. And then I encouraged Margaret to get food.
The end. But in all seriousness, when you reflect on your career overall, where do you believe you have had the greatest impact?
I truly don't know, Audrey. I know that what you do in your career, at least what I've done, is you try to make the moves you think will increase the odds ever so lightly of something good happening. That's all you do. Is you in the Catholic Church, they used to talk about an occasion of sin. An occasion of sin was a place where a young man could go awry by, you know, being in the backseat with a girl or something. I'm talking about a reversed occasion, an occasion of success. You set up a situation so you think there's just a little likelihood that something good will happen. And if you can increase the odds ever so slightly, then maybe the next time around something good will happen. And so what you do is in a lot of arenas, you try to make the moves you think will benefit. And I don't know which of those have been successful. I hope that 2 or 3 have.
Okay. What's next for you? What haven't you accomplished that you'd still like to achieve?
I'm terrified right now by the prospect that teachers will be evaluated around this country in an inappropriate manner. And I'm going to start a new book. And I'm giving myself 4 months to write it on the problem. I mean, the title, The Misguided Evaluation of America's Teachers, how you can help fix it. It tells you what I want to do. I want to describe to these people how they dare not use the approaches that they're currently contemplating for evaluating American teachers. I was one of those teachers once, and to be evaluated with some of the schemes that are being proposed now, it's just wrong-headed. And so I'm trying to forestall that.
You said I was one of those teachers once. I was one of those teachers once as well. So do you think that adds extra insight in terms of your research?
You know, I was asked in an interview just about a year ago at ASCD, and they've published a lot of my books, and I like them a lot. There was an interview, kind of a promotional interview, and someone just like you, not as bright, not as attractive, asked me the question, Dr. Popham, she referred to me formally, Dr. Popham, when was the happiest part of your career? And I hadn't been asked that question before, and I really did pause to think about it, and it was when I was a high school teacher. It was wonderful being a teacher, and that experience has influenced everything I do.
Okay. What inspires you?
Brownies. Chocolate brownies. Fudge chocolate brownies with extra chocolate chips.
And chocolate on top. Who do you believe has had the greatest impact on you and the person and scholar you have become today?
I think many professionals have a single individual who has influenced their behavior. I don't. I think my influencers are an amalgam of marvelous people, many of whom I can still call friends, who've had an impact on me, many of whom you're interviewing in this series. But it's not one person. It's an idea. Hear from David Berliner. David Berliner has only had one idea, so it's easy to remember his. But many people have contributed, so it's not one person.
What do you find uninspiring?
I have uninspiring. Define uninspiring.
The opposite of inspiring.
Well, that's the absence of inspiration. I found tree bark really uninspiring. Many people get excited about tree bark. I personally find it quite without interest.
Or hair. You mentioned hair earlier, right?
Oh, follicles growth is vastly overrated. When I did an original show on way back when the National Institute of Education was in operation, they had a week-long show. It was a wonderful show with wonderful people like Congresswoman Barbara Jordan, Breen Judge, and stuff like that. And I was on camera every day, and they videotaped this thing and then showed it nationally. And they had to use so much pancake makeup to take away the glare that they began calling me Flapjack. Now, I personally found that a little offensive, but nonetheless, it showed that hair wasn't important.
What is your favorite word? I
have no favorite word. I've deliberately taken a pledge not to have a favorite word because it makes the other words envious. And you don't want jealousy in your vocabulary.
You don't want to marginalize the others?
No, I promise.
Favorite curse word?
I have no curse words because I eschew profanity in all forms.
What profession other than your own would you have liked to attempt?
I would like to be a specialist in tree bark. If I could have only become a tree bark aficionado, I think I could have been happy.
Could have had a greater impact on the world.
Oh, yes.
What other profession would you have not liked to attempt?
I think a lot of kids always want to be athletes of one kind or another. I wish I would have had the athletic ability. It'd be really wonderful. I used to play. I'm a table tennis player. I'm a tennis player, but I'm just very average. It's kind of fun to play. Favorite
book?
I don't know if I have a favorite book. I've read a lot of Skinner and you know, it's a kind of funny thing when you embark on a career, you have to decide how you're going to spend your hours. And one point in my life, I really thought I can either read it or write it. And I chose to write it. I mean, I'm less well-read than I should be.
Interesting. If you could tell President Obama one thing, what would it be?
Listen to Jim Popham.
If you could have dinner with anybody dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Would the person be dead while I was having dinner with them?
That would be gross.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, it's kind of an interesting image, dead or alive, and I would have to probably figure out, I wouldn't mind having dinner with David Berliner. because he's a very cheap date. He doesn't know the difference between good wine and bad wine. Carlo Rossi is his favorite. I mean, that gives you an idea. So David would be fun.
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
That it is not a norm reference system.
Okay, finally, what advice might you offer to graduate students and beginning researchers who hope to make a contribution like you to education and educational research?
I would try to watch this tape very frequently. Not just once, but perhaps once per day.
Okay. When asked to capture the essence and nature of James Popham, David said, "Your most significant professional accomplishments cut to the essence of who you are. Like many leaders in the field, you are smart, though few are as witty. Like many leaders in the field, you are hardworking and well-published. Like many leaders in the field, you are committed to a better educational system and thus work a lot on problems of practice. And like many leaders in the field, you're always optimistic that things can always be made better. You take lots of things seriously, but you find ways to make us laugh at the same time." Margaret Heritage adds that you are a trusted friend who is honest and never says anything you don't mean. You are always one of the funniest people she knows. Your sharp wit is second to none. Paul Sandifer adds that with your high intellect, high energy, high professional and ethical, and master of the bon mot, you're just the Energizer Bunny. You just keep on going. And Dylan William adds that he has yet to read one of your emails that has not put a smile on his face. He also notes that your most significant accomplishment has been your discovery of realization that once a man is past adolescence, the only way to look really cool is to shave one's head and grow a goatee. Ava Baker notes that you have taught her the fundamentals underlying much of what she thinks. When she was in her 20s, you taught her how to work hard. When she was in her 30s and 40s, she denied the significant influence that you had on her. And in her 60s and 70s, she recognizes you again for your centrality to many of her strongly held views. She also answers the oft-asked question, given her generation, where were you when President Kennedy was killed? She respectfully gets to answer that she was with Jim Popham observing teacher ed students in a junior high school. Joe Ryan notes that you are the consummate educator, ever focused on the need to be clear and sensible in defining what we want students to learn, and in recognizing that the proper and most useful role of assessment is in providing teachers useful information that they can use to help in the process of teaching. And finally, Rick Stiggins notes that you have not been trapped by a particular vision of excellence in assessment, as have so many in the measurement community. Rather, throughout your career, you have been constantly out on the edge, striving to see assessment through new eyes, challenging accepted beliefs, assumptions, policies, and practices. When you have been right, the impact has been profound. When you have been wrong, you have been openly revised your thinking. Well, there is no doubt we have been not trapped, but engaged and lured by your esteemed excellence in assessment and everything you have done for students and teachers in schools, and us as educational researchers still grappling with educational assessment and educational assessment policy issues. On behalf of all of us, future educationists, educational researchers, and the like, we thank you, Dr. W. James Popham, for everything you do, and for most being you, given your humor, wit, tirelessness, and all. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.